Good. Welcome to the very first episode of this roundtable talk centered around mental health. The reason why I put this together in the Black community, many of us know that we are struggling mentally, physically, spiritually. And I want to put something together that actually shows many of us men of color talking about our experiences around mental health and some of the struggles that we've gone through. I also wanted to put this together to be an advocate of mental health in the Black community. So before we get started, there may be topics that do come up, and I want you all, whoever's listening, to be mindful that whatever you need to do to make sure that you're in a space that is comfortable, do so. Again, some of the things that we do talk about may be triggering ideas, may take you back to some of the trauma that you've already gone through in your life. Again, just be mindful of those things. Make sure that, number one, that you are safe within your space. So again, like I said before, we're getting this started to bring awareness to the Black community, but then also showing our experiences of mental health. Again, my name is Kendrick. I've had my long history of mental health, going through mental health situations. This is one of the biggest things that I am so passionate about, is bringing substance to our men of color and making sure that we do have options or the education and information in order to help ourselves as we grow within our own lives. I've got two guests with me today, great friends of mine. They bring a lot of experience in the entertainment world. I'll let them introduce themselves, because if I introduce them, I probably won't give them the justice that they deserve. Vince, go ahead and introduce yourself.
No doubt, greatly appreciative of this opportunity. Kendrick, thanks for having me. My name is Vince Bracy. I'm a host, entertainer from the Bronx, New York. 33 years old, Sagittarius. I don't know if that matters. I'm engaged to be married very, very soon, and I'm practicing wearing a ring so I can get used to it. Love the idea and topic of mental health. And I would consider myself an advocate, enthusiast, and have been in therapy for quite some time and encourage everybody to do the same. And we'll talk more later.
Now, great to have you, Vince. I appreciate it. Grant Jones.
Yes, sir. It's your ultimate entertainer, Grant Jones. What's going on, people? Yeah, same thing, man. Excited to be here. I've been doing mental health. I'm on the newer side, I'm one of those people that are just now getting into it a little bit, But I'm excited. I'm a Scorpio, so a lot of healing right there with the water signs. And yeah, let's shed some light. Let's get into it. I'm ready.
For sure, for sure. We'll definitely appreciate both of you, jumping on with me. I know these, and that's one of the biggest things is being vulnerable in these type of spaces. But also, I appreciate the both of you for always, being men of your own, as far as trying to do the mental health healing and providing others of value. And that's one of the big things that I noticed with both of you, is you all both try to provide value to anybody that you're around. So with this talk, I'm sure we'll definitely be giving our viewers some nuggets and gems to take home and to think about. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into this. And the first question that I have, and I think it is one of the things that I often think about and I've reflected on, but the question is, what is your perception of, or what was your perception of mental health when you were younger?
For sure, for sure. I'll start off if you guys don't mind. Can I get the mic? I got my light on now. Can I get the light? Can I get the light? No, my perception. I mean, honestly, I grew up in the church, so every answer in church for some people is just let go and let God. If you're going through something, just you're gonna get through it. I mean, honestly, some people just look at therapy with just like a negative connotation, where it's like, oh, there's something wrong, or oh, we don't want to be looked at. So I know in my family, there's times where we're more worried about what people think about our perception as a family rather than actually getting the help we needed. So for me, it was just one of those things where don't worry about it, just kind of keep it submerged and just go about your day and just do the best you can. So as I got older, though, I'm learning that there are some things that trigger me from my childhood, because I didn't take care of it when I should have, or didn't get the help I didn't seek out. So there's definitely times where now, as I'm getting an adult, it is affecting me, and I'm looking for ways to improve. So, like I said, I'm the newbie in the group. I haven't really done anything. I'm doing research on it, but talking to you guys, I feel like I'm doing better, and it's free talking to y'all, so it feels good. It feels good. So.
Free is good. Free is good.
hmm
Yeah, man. I would say my first perception of mental health, which is an interesting way to put it, because I feel like we didn't really talk about mental health much when I was younger, at least. I feel like it's more of a buzzword or buzz phrase nowadays. Because it's cool. It's like it's the woke thing to do to talk about mental health. But obviously, especially as young black men, like it's not the coolest thing in the world to discuss when you're growing up. I will say I was blessed to have my parents. I'm pretty sure my parents both saw some therapist of some sort at some point when I was growing up. So I was, oh, who's this doctor, that you go to every once in a while. So it was there. I still don't feel like my family as a whole took therapy and mental health super, super seriously. And even into now, I will get the cat out the bag right away. Again, 33 years old. I was diagnosed last year with adult ADHD. And it was something that I absolutely knew, like not new, but it was something I felt for a good portion of my life. And, there were so many hints and clues and stuff like that back in the day. But now it makes so much more sense. And any struggle, any, challenge that I faced in the past, or things that I found that were hard for me in high school, college, even my adult life with trying to work a 9 to 5 and like try to, function the same way that neurotypical people are also functioning. I think that is the thing that I'm like, oh, this is what I was missing. I needed to know this. I needed to have more information about myself, my brain, how my brain works. And I still will say that it's absolutely necessary. I don't know when we should start talking about it, in schools or as families, but mental health needs to be discussed. People need to start to analyze their inner thoughts, their behaviors a little bit more, because I think it'll help us heal as a community, honestly.
I want to kind of take what you said. You're now 33, and ADHD, or the diagnosis of ADHD, has just came about 12 months ago. When you were in school, were there certain things that either teachers or students, whether it be, they tried to say that, hey, this individual is out of control, he's not behaving well? Were there things like that that made you feel like there's something wrong with me, or did you feel like you were just misunderstood?
You know what's crazy? To this day, I still do not understand homework. The concept of homework makes absolutely no sense to me. And I'm not a stupid guy. You know what I'm saying? I did graduate from college. It took me a while, but I did graduate from college. I got into all the colleges I applied to. I only applied to three. And yeah, to this day, like the fact that I'm supposed to spend however many hours in front of you doing work and answering questions and opening books and talking to people, and then you want me to go home and prove that I know the stuff that I showed you that I know in front.
Mm.
I still don't get it. I still don't get it. But I will say that yeah, honestly, me recently being diagnosed, looking back, and I'm already losing track of thought, just things that happen with my brain, understanding as much about myself as I possibly can. I will say again, it's like I mentioned, it was something that it probably existed. It probably showed itself very clearly, and it was something that my parents, my teachers, even myself was either in denial about or thought it was something that, all right, this can be fixed with this. And recognizing, even in my teenage years, in my 20s, like I probably should have been in art school. I probably should have gone to a Montessori academy or something like that,
Mm.
as opposed to being forced to be put in that box and do the scantrons and everything like everybody else. Like it wasn't my thing. And even as an adult, I realized how different I am from other adults. So yeah, it's it's a very interesting experience. But I will say that I wasn't. A lot of people say like, "Oh, school was not for me." School absolutely wasn't for me, and I think a huge fear of mine, again, which is why I want to discuss mental health so much as often as I can, is that I would put my children through the same thing. That
Mm.
they're not, not to say cut out for a certain thing, but this it doesn't match. It doesn't, you're putting a square peg into a round hole.
Right. No, and I feel your pain because I was the same way in high school. I'm just like, man, I don't understand these concepts. I don't understand why I've got to do X, Y, and Z. It just doesn't make sense to me. But I think we're not the only ones that think that same way. And there's also students that go through the system and they do struggle with mental health, but then they're either, and I won't say all, but sometimes dismissed, or they get sent to what was the alternative school. So the behavior school is what I used to call it to students. And what my perception was is the students that misbehave went to this alternative school. But there's so many of us that we just don't understand. We're not being taught some of these things to where it connects with our own brain. And that's why mental health and discussing these things are so important because then maybe teachers can see this and say, oh, well, we have a student that struggles with this, this, and this. Maybe we need to approach it a little bit differently. And I want to get Grant's thoughts because I know Grant has a different journey as far as mental health. He said he's newer at this, and that's the great thing about having these conversations because everybody's at a different place in their life. They're on a different path, and that's what we have to understand. I know I'm a huge advocate for black men going to therapy, but I also understand that not all black men, that's not in their path. Maybe they eventually get to that, but initially there may be other alternatives that they have that allows them to get to that point. So Grant, can you explain your process of how you've just maybe in the last 5 or 10 years of your journey of getting clarity on your own life? I think Grant, you're on mute.
You know, it's one of those things with
I
these
should
Zoom
have let
calls,
you
man.
keep
You just
going.
never know when you on. You never know when you on. No, I was just saying how it's one of those things where for me, I realize that there's different ways to get the energy out. And what I mean by that is channeling how you feel. So if I feel angry at any time, I might go to the gym. If I'm a DJ, I'm an entertainer. So if I ever like feel like I need to just get like this weight off my chest, something like that, I DJ, I get lost in music. So there's different ways to cope with like your problems in life, but at the same time, you gotta look at it. Is it temporary or like, am I just getting a fix for a day and then am I back to square one? So I think for me, I've learned over the years for more of a spiritual path. I'm more spiritual than I am religious nowadays. I've learned with meditation kind of helps me learn how to like observe my thoughts and see where it's coming from and not judge myself or what's going on, but actually just be present in the moment. So it's just one of those things where I feel like there's different outlets, healthy, positive ones. There's also negative ones. I just choose positive for me, like working out, meditation, doing yoga, journaling. There's different options, but at the end of the day, if you're not taking that extra step to go to therapy, you're gonna kind of see those problems resurface until you get the root of the problem. So I kind of do the little circle thing and it's working for now, but I do know I have to get to the root of the problem if I want to completely heal. And I think we're always going to be in that motion where we're always going to be healing. There's no like completion. Life is a journey. It's a process. You just got to endure it as much as you can. But yeah, like I said, man, it's a process. So
I like that you've got to get to the root of the problem. And I always think about cars and people will spend time and spend money on taking their cars to get just basic oil changes or if the tires need to be rotated. But then if there's something major, say if the AC goes out, you take it to the mechanic. That mechanic finds what's the root of that issue, because if we don't get to the root of this issue, and I'm not a mechanic, so those mechanics out there, don't judge me, but we got to get to the root of why this AC isn't working, because if we don't fix this AC, then this may cause other issues down the road. And I there's so much knowledge. I mean, there's so many different fields that we can take mental health into, just using that as an example of, hey, if I don't get my car fixed, if I don't get to the root cause of why my car is not running properly, I'm going to end up spending thousands of dollars trying to get my car properly where it needs to be. On the
Or you
flip
might blow
side
up
of
on
that,
the highway.
exactly, exactly. And you think of mental health, and I use it, if you do not get to the, like Grant said, if you do not get to the root cause of what's causing your issues, whether it's depression, anxiety, we're both adults. All three of us are adults. There are things that come back from our childhood showing up in our everyday lives now that maybe we haven't worked through, or maybe we're working through, and it's just kind of one of those things that's taken us back to when we were a child. So that's a good point, Grant. I think a lot of people should, you know, take a look at that. What is causing, or what is the root cause of maybe failed relationships, failed marriages? Why do the root cause of your anger? There's so many different layers to it. But I want to go back into childhood since we're on that topic. So for the both of you, and whoever wants to go first on this, did you have an idea of what depression, anxiety, or just mental health was when you were a child? Um, or was it something that family, or did you see it through TV? Like, can you explain that to me?
Let me know. I got something to say, man.
Go
Uh,
for it.
yeah, what to piggyback off what both of you guys just said just now. I think Grant said, and you even talked about the car too. It's literally therapy is all about figuring out what makes you tick,
Hmm.
honestly. And again, in regards to your childhood, I tell people as often as I possibly can, especially those that are not in therapy, like you're gonna realize how many things, like you said, about relationships, the way that you interact with others, your work ethic, so many different things. Uh, so much has to go into either understanding who you are, where it came from, where the people that you got it from might have got it from. And I fight people about this all the time. I was like, did you know that your mom or your father does this? Like, oh, I never noticed that. Well, you've lived with them for most of your life and you didn't realize that that's something that you do as well. So it's hard to like shatter people's realities by letting, hey, we already know that we become our parents. Like that's an ongoing thing. That's an ongoing meme or saying. So it's something that people should absolutely pay more attention to. And I think the hardest part of life in a way is actually unlearning some of the things that we learned growing up. One of the hardest things, and something that people absolutely are not always willing to do, is unlearning some of the things that we learned growing up. If it's core values, like certain things, like I know Santa Claus is real, like, you know what I'm saying? Or Halloween is a horrible holiday. We can never celebrate this. Or Christopher Columbus is the man, certain things that we're taught from young, you know what I'm saying? That is like, oh, well, this is not how we do things anymore. No, this is, you know, 2022, 23 soon. Like we're in a PC world. You have to adjust. You have to adjust to all these things. So I say all that to say that when I took the time to unlearn, uh, I guess kind of scale back on every single moment in my life and realize like, oh, this is why I'm this way. It did have me reconnect with my inner child in good ways and bad ways. I
Mhm.
realized that some of my playfulness, my immaturity, my innocence comes from a place where I have always just wanted to have fun. That's just who I am as a person. Spread love, right? Shout out Astro Kid. Uh, it that's just who I was. Again, like now realizing that it probably has something to do with my brain chemistry that kept me this way and kept me in the upbeat, uplifting, like optimistic personality that I have. Like it's just it's a happy side effect
Mhm.
of the way that my brain works. But there's also sad parts of realizing like, oh, I was hurt as a child. I didn't necessarily know how to react in this time, and also maybe I probably need a hug, somebody to talk to, and those are the times that uh, I will not say I experienced depression as a young child. I definitely, as an adult, have experienced severe depression. Unfortunately, a little bit of anxiety as well comes along with that. But there are times that I think back to because of all the things that I've experienced in my life. Like, wow, is there a chance? Because I'm not a mental health professional, I'm an advocate, but could it be possible that I was depressed for a good amount of my life and just like
Mhm.
pushing through it? And that leads me to, again, how are all black men doing? Are we desensitized to all the stuff that's going on around us? Are we just lugging it through and trying to heave ho to the next day? Who knows?
And
We
that's a good point. And we'll definitely get into that. I want to go back. You said that you've experienced, and I know there are some things that are personal to you. So um, I think a lot of people, it's kind of like one of those things where depression can't always be seen. So just for the viewers, like what does that look like for as far as you? We'll just say, you and your fiance, if there are signs that you are going through or struggling, what are signs that she knows or picks up on?
It's hard. It's very, very hard. Without giving away too much, I will say that I had a conversation with my fiance about a friend of hers that is severely, severely, severely depressed. And though I have experienced depression while in this 6 years relationship at some point, and my fiance knew something was up.
Mm.
She knew I wasn't my old, chipper self. Uh, there was definitely the fact that my routine had changed. Life changes definitely affect your health, your mental health, and your mood. So I had left it. By choice, I left the job and was like, all right, I'm gonna make my way to the next job and figure it out. And it didn't happen as fast as I needed it to or wanted it to. And she had did the I told you so, and I'm like, I know that I have the capabilities to get to the next level to achieve what I want. It's just not happening in the time that I want. So I had to deal with that on my own. I had to seek out therapy, and I had to, it's still to this day, even with sharing with her my journey of discovering more things about ADHD and myself. I am constantly trying to let her know, hey, look, this is how I feel in this time. But just to, again, to not to use her friend as an example, but when she came to me and asked me, well, I know you're serious about mental health. How can I relate to this person who is going through something, doesn't want to speak to me, won't text me back? I've been in their house and they won't open the door. And I've had similar situations like this with friends myself as well. And the simplest thing I could explain to her or offer her for advice, because there's no correct answer necessarily, but the best advice I could give was let her know that you still care. Don't stop texting. You're a great friend. That's something that she appreciates about you already. Understand that, you know, there's no necessary right answer. So you can't possibly say something that'll be, oh, really? The light and the clouds have opened up now. I'm so undepressed immediately. But what you can do is let that person know that you care. Let that person know that you are there for them and want to continue to see them grow and love themselves, and provide love for them as well. And just, you have to understand that there's going to be some days where they, not to touch on suicide too much, but there's going to be days where they're not going to want to get out of bed. There's going to be days where they're not going to want to talk to anybody. There's going to be days where they might be hearing voices, and it might be their own voice telling them bad things about
Mm.
themselves. And I, you know, my go-to is to stay positive, but I know that's not the easiest thing in the world for everybody.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's
No,
something that has to continuously be touched on.
yeah, good info there. And before we get to Grant, I also want to mention, as far as you'd said that just letting that other person know that, hey, I'm here for you, because it's one of those things to where not everybody knows what's going through that other person's head. Only that person specifically knows at specific times how he or she is feeling when they're not having the best of the best day. So as a friend, you make that good point of, hey, just reach out to them, let them know that, hey, I'm here. This all positivity, all love over this way. And I think that's the biggest thing that we can do for somebody that is going through something like that, is letting them know that, hey, you still have somebody right here. And the other point that you made, and he didn't get into detail, but I think it's important for men, if you are in a relationship, to have that open communication with your partner, because there have been times, even in my own life, where I've dated somebody that has gone through some type of some mental health situation or depression, and we've communicated through it. And I asked that person, what do you need? Because as a fixer, that's just naturally who I am. I'm like, hey, let's go for a walk, let's go to the gym, let's cook some good food. And you mentioned, like, you can't just snap out of it. And I think for people that have not gone through depression, it's hard for people to understand, like, this isn't just snap your fingers and the dark clouds just removed from you. It's something that you're in, and it may take time to get through. So good point, Vince. So going over to Grant, and the question was, what was your or did you have an idea of what depression, anxiety look like, or did you have any information on it when you were younger, grade school, middle school, high school?
Yeah, man. Not personally for me. Like I said, once again, I grew up in like a conservative Christian household. So anything like outside that wasn't like normal or considered normal, we were like steered away from it, and hidden from it. But I love the fact when people make those quotes where they say life is understood backwards. And what I mean by that is, as an adult, you can start seeing things from a different perspective that you didn't notice as a kid. So not depression, but looking back at it, when I was a kid, I could see I probably had a little bit of anxiety. Looking at it, being an entertainer, being a dancer, MC, there's times before, even when I was in first grade, those concerts you sing, Santa Claus is coming to town, everyone, there's certain things I would do that I know it's like, oh wow, I really did kind of like pick at my fingers a little bit, or maybe I like chip my nails or I look down the ground when I talk to people. Um, so there's one of those things where you learn, like back to Vince's point, just to piggyback off him, you learn from the people that you surround yourself with the most. I remember when I was a kid, I used to love cheese pizza, right? Cheese pizza was my jam, but everyone in my family liked pepperoni. So eventually over time, family of five, three kids, we just can't get cheese for little Grant. I'm the baby, the baby gets usually spoiled, but I had to get everything what everyone else was getting. So pepperoni was the choice. And over the years, I love to learn pepperoni. I learned to love pepperoni. As an adult now, I'm vegetarian and I don't eat meat. And I'm like, wow, when I was a kid, I used to love eating cheese pizza. So now it's like, I feel like when you look at it from a different perspective and you're mature enough, your brain's mature enough to actually see what's actually going on, then you can start the healing process. But you'll never get there if you don't take the time to look in hindsight and look at all those moments where you study yourself. So introspection, self-awareness, and just understanding who you are as a person over the periods of times in your life. So I would definitely say that. Last thing I would want to say too with anxiety, back in hindsight, I remember I used to pick up my friend. You ever had that friend that you got the car, they don't, and you always got to drive them around, but they always say, hey, yo, bro, I'm outside. Give me 15 more minutes. I'm like, okay. 2 hours later, bro, I'm still outside. Like, where you at? Looking back on it, I had a conversation with him as an adult. I'm like, bro, did you suffer from like anxiety? He's like, bro, you don't understand. I said it would take me so much, Grant, just to get out of the house. And like you were so confident as a dancer at the parties, it would just take so much energy for me to just be with you. And like he was just telling me, like, bro, like you don't understand. Like, yes, I had so much anxiety. So I think as an adult, we're in a more mature and a respectful space because everyone's at different levels in life. So you can't just say, oh, I had anxiety when I was 3. Like some people are still recovering from it. So for me, it wasn't depression, but I believe anxiety. And I always talk about it as a comedian, as an entertainer. I think Chris Rock, one of my heroes, he said, "It's not we're not scared, like we're not nervous because we're scared. We're nervous because we want to do well." And I remember someone saying, anxiety is when you are stuck in the future, and depression is when you're like focusing on the past. So it's
Mm.
just one of those things where if you understand back to the self-awareness where you're coming from and just being in that present moment, I think that will be very key. So
And that's the hardest thing, I think, for just
yeah,
in general for people is being in the present moment. We have so many distractions around us, whether it be social media, we've got TV, you got Netflix, you literally have everything at the fingertips. And it's like, okay, which direction should I go? And so many of us look outward of, okay, which direction should I go? And we completely miss what is here. One of the things my grandma always says is, "Did you stop and smell the roses?" Because I mean, and it's a reminder of, like you said, we're so far into the future that we forget about today, and then we look back on life wondering where'd all the time go, and we have regret of, I wish I would have spent more time. There's one thing. There's a quote that I've also seen, Grant, to where I don't remember who it was, but it was a celebrity, and it may have been Gary V. And he said, if you go to an or that's not a politically correct term, but if you go to a Good Samaritan home, and see, I'm learning too. I'm learning too. If you go
proud of
to
you.
Inclusive
it,
language.
right, right. If you go to a Good Samaritan home and you sit down and speak with five people there, and the majority will often say, I didn't want more money, I wanted more time. Because you can have all the money that you want, but if you have it, that's the focus of your life is getting money, you often, again, like Grant said, you forget what's in the present moment. Now, there's nothing wrong with money. We all like money, but chasing money and then you forget about life, you forget about your kids, you forget about your friends, you forget about your loved ones. What is life at that point? And so, that's one of the things that, as far as Grant, you're extremely spiritual. What are some things that you do to stay in the present moment to aid in just improving your mental health?
For sure. During yoga and meditation, I have what you call monkey brain, right? So one of the things they really say if you got that problem is just breathing in, like literally just closing your eyes and focusing on that breath. So many times we just take for granted, like, bro, like when you wake up in the morning, you don't think about breathing, you don't think about your heart beating. Like some people didn't wake up this morning. So having that gratitude in the morning and just understanding, like just and then exhaling and just really just concentrating on you breathing. Just the look, it's as cliche as it sounds, it's the little things in life for me. Just understanding like, okay, when I breathe in, I'm gonna count to 4. And then after that, I'm gonna hold my breath for 4. Then after that, I'm gonna exhale for 4. That really helps me stay grounded. Going outside in nature by trees, that kind of helps me make sure that okay, it's a beautiful day. Let me enjoy it, let me get some vitamin D, let me get out in the sun, let me hear birds, let me see my surrounding. Because like you said, with your phone, like see this thing right here, everything is at our fingertips where it's just like we forget that, hey, like Becky might be twerking on Instagram right now, or she might be doing a challenge, but like that has nothing to do with what you want to accomplish in your life. That's her life. So it's one of those things where I'm just like, bro, you have to like stay focused. And sometimes you just got to do the simple things before you can do the big things for me.
Hmm,
So
good point. Good point. What about you, Vince? What are things that you do to stay grounded and stay in the present moment to enjoy life or the people that you're around?
It's very hard, man. It's very hard. I've gotten into setting reminders for myself. Honestly, as crazy as it sounds, I do recognize that. I need to make time to talk to one of my boys. Me and Grant have an accountability meeting on the calendar every single week,
Love it.
and if we,
every Tuesday, tap in.
every Tuesday, feel free tap in. Most of the times at 8 a.m. Pacific. But if something fluctuates, if he's got something going on, if I got something going on, we always check in the night. Oh, hey, we still 8 o'clock tomorrow? And that is something that I appreciate as an accountability partner, you know. For myself specifically, like I said, I'm very big on meditation. Trying to get myself to do it every day is also very hard. I still make sure I put it in the calendar. I've gotten down to uh, ways of not negotiating with myself to make sure that I stay on top of my tasks and stay disciplined. But the ways that I negotiate or sacrifice in ways to make sure that I still get things done. I have an 11-minute video. Shout out to Bob Proctor, RIP, that I watch or I listen to probably at least once a day. And it puts me in a zone where I feel like I'm about to fall asleep, but I'm very conscious and intentional on, again, gratitude, like Grant mentioned, and making sure that I'm preparing myself for the next step. Outside of that, a lot of times I will honestly say to you, I just feel like I'm running around like a chicken without a head. But I've managed to get myself to a point where it's not that it's comfortable, but that it is doable. And I know that specifically this year is probably one of the busiest years of my life. And I see it as a learning and growing moment, and I know I'll make it through this. And the reason I'm pushing myself to get through this is because I know once again about growth and learning. That's what life is all about. If I get to a certain point where it's like, all right, that was a lot this year. That was a lot. I know next year I'll be able to move things around or have a better understanding of myself and my routine and how I operate to be able to be more efficient. That's all.
Routines are key. Routines
So,
are key. So one of the, like I said at the beginning of this, the reason why I wanted to put this together is talking about men of color going to therapy or speaking about mental health. Why do you think it is so difficult, or why so many men of color neglect or avoid going to therapy?
Man, that's it's a lot. I mean, I don't know. I guess I can only speak on our community when I speak on this, but like, I feel like there's just always pressure on us to be great at all times. And so, with that being said, there's very slight error, like room for error in anything we do. You know, the Oscars, Will Smith and Chris Rock, like we take one step forward winning that Oscar, but we took 5 steps back. And like that represents all of us. So literally, I think Quincy Jones was talking about, he was talking about it's called analysis paralysis. And it's like we are literally so focused on like thinking, overthinking that we can't even move to it gets to the point where we can't even function because we're so worried about we're making the wrong move. And I feel like a lot of Black men not necessarily feel like that, but they've been in positions where they have the opportunity to feel like that, where it's like, okay, you're the man of the house, you have to do this. On top of this, you got to be that. You've seen in the community where on Instagram's perfect example, girls, they a lot of girls, I don't want to generalize, but I say a lot of girls, they feel like their body they can just bring to the table, you know what I mean? And that's it. That should be enough. But if you look at what a man has to bring to the table, especially a Black man, not only do we have to overcome racism, we have to be number one, and then we have to always be the provider. So I just think there's a lot of pressure where it breaks us down to the point where, wow, we have to do so much. Just like Vince was saying, to piggyback off what he said earlier about, okay, I did a lot this year. I got to make sure, what can I do to tweak to make sure I'm not going to be in that position again. So like I said before, self-awareness, understanding that we have to be in a place where we're not doing so much, but we have to be doing something, and you just can't overthink it. But honestly, I don't know if I answered your question or not, but I feel like there's a lot of just pressure just being Black in general. So,
Mm-hmm,
and that goes for women as well too, but we're speaking about Black men. So
right, right. No, I like the perspective there for sure, especially when you talk about pressure and all the things that we have to do. It may not be, and here's the thing. People will say, well, you don't have a lot to do. We may not, as far as like having a list of things to do, but with men, and I mean, you've seen it in our men's groups, and just me having different conversations with men, is we feel that we have to be the provider, we have to be the rock in all relationships, we have to keep everything together, because if we don't, we are lesser than a man. or we're not, the new phrase, masculine. We're not masculine if we don't, continue being the provider and things like that. And so you do make a good point. I think there sometimes is a lot of pressure for us to perform. I think a lot of things are from a performative standpoint. It's like, okay, if we go to work, we have to make this amount of money. Otherwise, nobody looks at us as being equal or a solid dude, right? And so again, pressure. So good point there. Vince, how about you? What are your thoughts on that? As far as why so many of us black men avoid or refuse to go to therapy to do the deep healing.
One word, Kendrick: stigma, bro. Stigma.
Mm,
Dog. Like that's literally it. Like I don't know where it started. If it was from the witch hunt days, like I don't know. Like talking about our feelings is something that we don't do. I'm not sure why. I mean, we're getting into it more, and that's why we're having this podcast right now. But for some reason, it became a sign of, and we touched on this a little bit. You soft, you know what I'm saying? A sign of we over here trying to share for. Also, it could be seen as a sign of your kingdom is in peril. You know, you don't have control of your household. Your kids is running wild, you running wild, your woman is running wild, and you may not have your head on straight. And that is never something that us as a black man who, again, we go through, and we all came from a woman, got a name from a woman, you know what I'm saying? Shout out to black women. But I think the struggles that black men have to go through in terms of again, just man struggles, call it what you want. We're supposed to seem like we're being the provider. We're supposed to be strong. We're supposed to be manly, masculine, if you will. And when it comes to a point where, you know, that is being taken away from us or is being threatened, or the people, which that's another thing that the black community does that I don't know how many other communities, there's other cultures, but I feel like we're such a finger pointing kind of, like the shade room exists.
100%.
Like, you know what I'm saying? I feel like we're always, oh, what are they doing? What are they going through right now? What's the drama? What's the tea? Like, why? Why can't we come together in, in positivity? But yeah, honestly, black men, we're running from so many outside factors, ourselves and each other. And it's one of the hardest things in the world to have to deal with.
Mhm. As a we'll stay with you, Vince, as a black man, 33 years old, and you're carving out your path to success. When you first went to therapy, was it something that somebody advised you to do, or was it something that you're like, explain that? What was it? What specifically what made you go to therapy and heal some of the things that you've gone through?
I'm so glad you asked, Kendrick. I'm so glad you asked this because as I was wrapping up that last set, I just got into a really dark place, man. I was like, man, I recognize how often it is that, again, like we should be a brotherhood. We should be like this. We should be aiming to help and heal each other. And I must say that the thing that is bugging me right now that I can't wait to talk to my therapist about in my next session. I just came back from New York, a funeral for uncle of mine that had passed. And yesterday, or no, today is a different day now, but earlier this week, I found out a cousin of mine was murdered in Harlem,
Mm,
stabbed to death. He was living in Philly, came home just to visit his family, and it's like I don't even know if I've met him. I don't know if I've had a conversation with him. He's got the same last name as me, but like I know his brother, I know his sister, I know his mom, and it was just like, yo, that's so crazy. Like what, you know? So it hurts because I'm pretty sure we don't know who the suspect is, but most likely it was another young black man that either had an issue or was out doing the wrong things. So that was something I just had to get that off my chest. I'm sorry about that. But the reason I initially went to therapy, again, I did have experience with my parents going to therapy for different things. The very first time I went to therapy was, let's see, I might even be able to tell you the day, October 13th, 15th, 2006, I would say, a couple days after Veterans Day. I was a freshman at Howard University, and I had been robbed at gunpoint by another black man.
Wow.
And I'm from the Bronx, New York. I've seen guns. I've seen people get shot directly in front of me. I've never been shot myself, thank goodness, but close. I've never had anybody point a gun at me ever until I was a freshman at Howard University. And, being in a place where this is prestigious university, you know what I'm saying? It's still in the hood. You got to consider that a lot of colleges are in the hood. But when I say that, being like roughed up and, hit and pistol whipped and robbed and, having people curse you out and you don't know what's next. And now you have to get police involved. So now you're a kid from the hood. It's like, damn, I got to snitch now. Like what's really about to happen? Like, all those things are like, again, monkey brain, as Grant said. It puts you in a weird place where it's like, I don't even know who I am anymore. Like, I can't listen to 50 Cent without getting teary-eyed. Like, what is happening to me? Like I'll whoop your head, boy, used to be my jam. Now I'm like traumatized by it. Like, not today, but at the time. Like, I literally was like, yo, is this the lifestyle I want to portray? Is this the lifestyle I want to be a part of? Is this something that I want to continue to internalize? If, this is where I came from. I'm a New Yorker. I'm from where hip hop came from. There's happens to be drama and violence from where I'm from also, but I knew that wasn't me. I was a Catholic school kid most of my life, but I wasn't soft, but being put in a position where somebody tells you to shut up or you won't ever speak again, is literally life-changing. I can say that's probably the day that I stopped being afraid of death as much, because I didn't shut up. And that was one thing that made me go to therapy. Honestly, I recognize I can pinpoint, like I said, I had the day. I can pinpoint the moment where somebody told me to my face, another black man, I will take your life if you don't stop making noise. And I didn't stop. So I probably have never just met someone for the very first time, sat down in their office and cried my eyes out ever like that. But I will say that my first therapy session was recommended by police and my RA at the time, because it was a very traumatic experience, and I was messed up about it. It literally threw off the entire course of my freshman year of college, because I couldn't focus. And I mean, I already couldn't focus, but I could focus even less in my classes. It was pulling me away from my studies. I was like suffering from weird PTSD because I was still living in a neighborhood that was strange to me. And I don't know if you have been in DC in 2006, but it was, you know what I'm saying? It wasn't The Wire, but it was still kind of a wild time. So yeah, that was where I was at with therapy. I definitely recommended it to my friends. I didn't tell them that I cried the entire time. I told my parents though, because I was grateful to still have my life, but I almost felt stupid. I felt stupid because I had, not obeyed what someone that was threatening me was saying. And I'm like, in the moment, I'm like, why is this something that I'm doing? And also it made me not want to trust people that look like me. And that is probably one of the hardest things ever.
That and it's crazy, man. First of all, thanks for sharing that,
No
because
problem.
there's so many of us that look like we do that have experienced that same situation or have been around those type of environments or situations. So you sharing that just peels the layer back of like, hey, this is my trauma, this is what I've experienced, and it has shaped me in a way that, like you said, it forever changed your life. But I want to mention the point you said you were recommended by an officer, and my first initial thought was, that's not something that we usually go through. It's not. And we have this, there are a lot of bad officers in this world. I'm not going to put all of them in that bucket of all officers are bad, because they're not. I lived next to an officer when I was growing up. He was the nicest dude I knew, and he was legit. He was about his business, and he meant good. But so many people that could potentially be hearing this and not knowing that, hey, you've just experienced something that could have ended your life. It may be a good idea to go through therapy to work through those emotions, because what often happens is we suppress. And when we suppress, I think the saying goes is, the reason why we need to understand our feelings is because when we need to show our feelings, we know how to deal with those feelings.
Yes.
In our community, we're so quick to go to anger. Anger is the first thing to respond when it comes to something vulnerable, or having to share feelings. Our partners are pressing us on an issue. Man, why are you talking to me like that? Yeah, anger, and so I'm appreciative that you shared that, because there's so many people that can benefit from just hearing that story. So thank you. um, Grant, the again, kind of just switching gears, you have a different perspective on therapy. You haven't physically been in a therapist office or have spoken to a therapist, but you've taken the more spiritual route. Have there been things, or has there been things in your life that cause you to go inward and get more in touch with your spirituality?
Yeah. First off, Vince, thank you so much for sharing that, man. That means a lot. So thank you for trusting us to, you know, share that with everyone today. That was really powerful.
What's that?
For me, honestly, like I said, man, I take the more spiritual route, like we the history behind black people, African people, melanated people. Like I said, I go back to my point, Kendrick, where like there's just so much pressure. And I was just thinking about when you guys were talking, like we went from being gods and goddesses, kings and queens, from like Africa, or Kemet as you go back from it. And then to see us go down that line and go from kings and queens to like slavery, there's just so much knowledge that is available out there, but it's necessarily hidden in America to the black community, and not the knowledge that. So there's a lot of pressure to look outward, but then at the same time, you need to look inward as well too. Just understanding there's black queens like Isis, Cleopatra, Nandi, and to see that mentally and physically, it gives you like, wow, that's where I come from. And so anytime I see stuff like that, I want to learn more about myself. I want to do like ancestry, like stuff. I want to learn where I come from. My grandma, she took the test. I'm from Ghana and then Nigeria, so I want to travel there. So that's where the spirituality comes from me. I'm looking now from within, not externally. And it's one of those things where I'm just like, okay, I can control my life. I can be that power. I can use my voice. Like Vince said, like you can keep on speaking when others tell you to shut up. It's just like, no, I'm taking my control back. I'm doing this for myself. So I don't know. It's just I never really experienced anything like that because like I said, I've been sheltered my whole life. But in terms of understanding where therapy comes into play, I want to know more about the way I tick. So the best way to do that is to find someone to help me through that process and journey. And I feel like in the black community, we sometimes feel like, no, I gotta do it my way. I gotta be tough. I gotta be gritty. I can't do that. I can't look like a little bee. So it's I don't know. It's tough. It's just tough, but we were kings and queens, and I want to get back to that level, and that's where I was going with it. I feel in the black community there's so much pressure from when we went back to slavery. Now when we're like set free, we have to build our way all the way back up now, because if
Mhm.
y'all I don't know if y'all knew, but the queens were running stuff back then, you know what I mean? Kings, we were cool, but the queens, they were running stuff back then. So I feel like there's a lot of pressure to get our black queens back to where they belong on the throne. But one step at a time. I can't help you until I help myself. Same thing with the airplane. When the mask come down, you got to put your own mask on first, and then you can help the people beside you. Because if I'm scrambling, I might bump into your head, and now the kid ain't got nothing, and we all ain't breathing. So that's where I'm trying to
100%.
loop it back. Therapy is putting on your mask for me. So that's where I'm looking at the steps. So I'll shut up now.
No, yeah, I like what you said. And hopefully none of us are ever on a plane and we have to put on our mask, but you said it. I mean, you couldn't have said it in a better way. Put your mask on first before you try to help anybody else in your circle or in your life. And far too often, and I think as far as just from what I've seen, especially my mom, she is like, I want to take care of you. And I love her for that because she wants to make sure everybody is good. But at the same time, we also have to make sure that, we are good ourselves. Our queens are good. We have to make sure. And I also think, just in the Black community where um, so many of our queens are raising kids on their own, and there's that perception of, well, I saw my mom do X, Y, and Z. She was cooking, she was cleaning, she was going to work, she was putting the band-aid on, she was going to the football, basketball, everything. And so when we grow up, we're like, well, my mom, she was a queen, she was a boss, she was doing everything. But again, we have to come back to putting on your own oxygen mask before we can fully give ourselves to anybody else. And I like that point that you made, Grant, because it's so overlooked in our community. You made another point where we and maybe it was Vince, but we spend a lot of time pointing fingers of this, that, this, to where if we spent more time collaborating, coming together, using our resources and trying to build on our resources, I think that would shift the culture and how we think. But there's such a me versus you mentality in our community, especially with men. It's like, oh, you got that? Well, I'm gonna one up you. I'm gonna go get a new pair of Jordans. Now what? I got the latest Jordans out. Did you know I was reading a statistic to where we spent, and I could be fabricating the numbers a little bit. I think there was $2 to $3 billion on Jordans. And I can't remember what year this is. Somebody might have to fact check me on this because I don't remember the specific number. But we have so often we have this mentality of trying to look good, trying to impress other people to make ourselves feel good. And that's where we go back, like you said, Vince, at the beginning. What is the root cause of why you do what you do? And if we don't understand why we do the things that we do, it makes it harder for us to heal from the things that we've seen. And oh man, this I could keep on going, but again, I want to be, as Grant says, I want to be respectful of your time. Um, but I mean, Grant, the cool thing is, and we mentioned it earlier in the talk, you don't have to immediately go to therapy right away. Grant is learning about himself, learning about why he ticks through spirituality. And then from the sounds of it, one day, go into therapy, a trained professional to get a better understanding of why he ticks the way he does. Vince has been through therapy for many years. And Vince, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're still learning about yourself.
Always, always.
Always. And so did anybody fact check me on that?
Oh, actually, on the Jordans?
Yeah.
Nah.
I'm pretty sure. I think it was, man, I think it may have been ET that said it. I'm pretty sure.
It's possible. We know Michael Jordan's rich.
Yeah, but and the numbers may be off, but the point is we spent so much money on Jordans, and we all know, like in our community, hey man, don't step on my Jordans. We put more of a luxury and we protect our Jordans more than we protect our own lives and our mental health. That's backwards. That is completely backwards. That's why these conversations are so important to show younger generations that, hey, if we can get our mental health in line, we can start building our community. But too often, especially, we take it one step further into the hip hop music, and what is ingrained in the hip hop music: drugs, sex, money, and violence. Those four things are constantly being preached over in these lyrics, and sometimes we wonder why many of our young black men are idolizing some of these artists and why there's so much violence and crime in our communities. But again, you have people that are broken. We ourselves were once broken until we actually went to therapy to fix some of those things and put together, or put the pieces back together. Now, it may not completely fit like a puzzle. That's the journey of life. And Grant can attest to this and think you mentioned as far as continuing looking inward and trying to continue to build ourselves into the men that we know we can be, so then we can spread the love and spread the knowledge to other people.
Straight up.
So, oh, Dr. Umar, yes, that is exactly
Yeah.
who it was.
So
I was trying to
I found the video. I got you, man. The title of the video says Black people spend 2 billion a year, 2 billion a year on Air Jordans and 4 billion a year on liquor. So once that goes right to what you were talking about, Kendrick, the music videos, the way we are perceived as Black people. If you see a Nelly music video, you're gonna see some Jordans, Air Force Ones, you're gonna see some liquor, So yeah, Vince, Air Force One, but it's one of those things where they're portraying it, and it's not by coincidence at all. It's like it's the system that we live in, the music industry. They want us to be seen in that way. They don't want to be seen as doctors, kings and queens, lawyers. They want us to be seen as rappers. So we have to change the narrative if we want to change, and that always starts by, like what you're saying, coming together. So facts.
And there's one last point that I want to make. I know we've got a little bit of time here, but there was, as we're kind of talking about the culture, and I'm looking this up, there's if you can, Grant, the author of Grain Brain, it's Dr. Oh man, it's off the top of my head. It's Dr. Gosh, I can't even think of he was just on this Sean Stevenson Model Health podcast, but he was talking, and I was listening to this yesterday, and I wasn't surprised, but I was surprised at how many of these food industries market and target Grain Brain. I don't think that's, gosh, who, Wheat Belly. Type in Wheat Belly. But he was talking about how many of these food industries, fast food, junk foods, target the African American community. And so he was kind of talking about how before, I think is payday, or when the funds hit the link card, that's when these food industries start marketing to the Black community, because it's like, hey, it's when we get our money, okay, let's start targeting. And it's crazy to think that food industries do that, and that's why I'm surprised, but I'm not surprised, because our culture oftentimes is the inferior culture. But if we look back at our history, and so many things have come from our culture, and it's cool. Like Grant said, he's like, I want to continue learning about where I come from, what my history is all about, because it's rich. There's so much in it. But society has kind of like brushed it under the rug and have forgotten about it. And it takes us so far away from our roots, but our roots has made us who we are as people. We just need to, and we talk about roots, we need to continue watering our roots so they grow deeper and spread wider in order to heal our community. um, Went on a little bit of a tangent there, but that's something that I'm sure y'all are used to. So with everything being said, good conversation that we had today around mental health. Before we get off here, what is advice that you would give to our Black men in our community watching this video on mental health, and advice as far as seeking a therapist or getting in touch or healing trauma that we've been through.
Hmm. We'll definitely listen back to this podcast. First off, that's the first tip. I always, and I'm sure I've sent it to Grant too. I didn't even dawn on me that you've never sat on a therapist's couch before. I didn't know that was a thing. But I particularly, it's not an ad for BetterHelp, but they do have an option to send a friend a week. And if you send your friend a week, it gives you a free week. And I usually give that free week back to a friend too. So every chance I get, I send a friend of mine that might be experiencing something 2 weeks worth of BetterHelp. If you have that account, I would recommend you do the same. Search if you have insurance for your job or something like that. There's going to be a way to find out if you might be able to access some affordable therapy. If you're in college, a lot of schools have a health center or something like that where you can sit in. I definitely took advantage of that in college. Wasn't going through anything specific outside of the story that I told. When I had transferred to a new school, I just realized that it was a free opportunity to talk to somebody, and we all need to talk to somebody. So definitely recommend that. If you're feeling some type of way about speaking to someone, try to have some, deeper conversations with your homies, your family members. There's conversation cards or conversation videos on YouTube or something like that that people could look through. But yeah, I think that is about it. Meditate a little bit and
Yes, sir.
try to get to the why. Who are you, man?
No, I appreciate the advice. Again, a lot of us, it's funny how men work is like, oh, you trying that new protein? Man, I'm gonna try that out too. And so just hearing that, just different ways and different routes to healing trauma and getting the mental health. So appreciate that. Grant, how about you? Any words of advice for anybody who is along their journey of wanting to improve their mental health or, have interest in getting in touch with their spirituality?
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, the air mask is like therapy, man. Like, so you got to start with yourself. And it can be simple too. Like, just be more observant in your life. Look at what you eat. Study like how you act around people. Look at your surroundings. Start with that kind of stuff first. Then once you understand how, like, what triggers you, can start controlling your emotions. I think one of the biggest things is like what Kendrick and the Vince were talking about, just reaching out. And people say, "Oh, you trying that protein? Okay." Like, "Oh, you on Tinder? You on Grind? Oh, okay, man. Most I'll try that. I'll try Hinge later. I'll try Bumble." So, talk to people. I was just asking my friend. She goes to therapist. I was like, "There's free therapists, right?" I'm like, "Yeah, for sure." So there's a website right here. It's called walkin.org. WALKIN.org. We'll put in the link right there if you guys want to look for more. But that's what I'm looking at right now. I'm studying it. And don't, like I said, and Kendra said it too, there's no time frame on it. I can learn more about myself and then go to therapy. So don't feel rushed. Don't feel like you got to do it right now. And we're taking the pressure off you right now to be great. You can be great on your own terms, but just know the greatness isn't within inside you. So no worries, no pressure, but self-discovery. I got it. You got it. We know we all got it. Black magic. Hey, that's what I'm talking about. Black magic all day.
Appreciate it. I appreciate it. And the last thing, I was looking on my phone, and I hate doing that, but I was looking for a link that I just found. The other thing in the community is finding a culturally competent therapist. So what do I mean by that? Finding a therapist that look like us. And
Yes.
my cousin just sent me a link the other day, and it's Inno Psych psych.com, INNO
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
psych.com, to where you can get on there. You can basically type in and filter if you're dealing with depression, anxiety, childhood trauma, career changes, and you can find a culturally competent therapist to assist you in whatever you're working through. I know we talked a lot about mental health today, but I've had talks with my therapist about career changes. And that is kind of, when people talk about a midlife crisis, I had a midlife or an early life crisis of trying to figure out which career path that I wanted to take. And so there are so many benefits to going to a therapist. My advice is, if you find a therapist, vet your therapist. What I mean by that is make sure the therapist fits what you need, not what that therapist needs. I'm going to say that again. Find a therapist that fits what you need, not what the therapist needs. I've tried out therapists where it seemed like they wanted to speak about themselves. So I felt like I was a therapist trying to be a therapist to my therapist. It didn't make sense to me. And so I had to shop around and find great I've had to find new therapists, and I've done that. I've been fortunate enough to have two great therapists. They weren't culturally competent therapists, but here's the thing. When we are on our journey, sometimes the first thing that we need to do is just knock on the door to open the door, or to have somebody open the door for us. We walk in and we may initially meet a therapist that gives us everything that we need, but may not understand the culture. That's fine. Get through what you need to get through today, tomorrow, next week, next month. And then once you find that it's a great time to shift over to a culturally competent therapist, you can do that. So there's no one way to do this. There's so many different ways, like we've talked about. Grant's on his own journey, Vince is on his own journey. I'm still on my journey. But the thing is, we need to start making mental health an okay topic to talk about in the Black community, especially us men. There's far too often, there was a meme going around of Sierra, because she's married to Russell Wilson, and people gave her crap about it, and they're like, hey, you need to marry you a future. What they were saying is, you need to marry you a toxic Black man. And for some reason in the Black community, that's like the archetype of, well, we won't get too far into that. But anyway, but anyway,
Next episode.
like I said, I get on these tangents sometimes,
It's
but
in the lyrics, man. So what? And I can't leave them alone. It's in the lyrics. I'm just
yeah,
saying. All
yeah.
right, Sierra.
But with all that being said, I appreciate everybody who's listened today, everybody who's tapped in, as Grant said. Before we get off here, Grant, how can everybody find you and some of the things that you're doing in the entertainment and MC DJing world?
Yes, sir. Ultimate entertainer at your service. You can visit me at www.grantjonesentertainment.com. Once again, grantjonesentertainment.com. You can also follow me on social media at GJ Entertainer. Once again, GJ Entertainer. We leave the link in there below. Follow your boy if you want some game shows. If you want some, I got everything, man. You want stand up? I got you. You want some Chris Rock? I'll give you some Chris Rock real quick if you want it. I'll give it to you. Can't believe, man. But no, seriously, follow me. All right, I'm done.
I appreciate you. I appreciate you. Be sure to go out and follow Grant Jones, GJ Entertainer. Go ahead and follow him. He's got some good content. He's provides some great services. Vince, how can everybody find you?
Yes, sir. I did want to finish off and just say therapy is an investment, y'all. Get up on it, man. That's how you, it's an investment, right? You invest in other things. We talked about Jordans and whatnot. But you can follow me on most social medias. I only really care about Instagram, even though I'm barely on there. At Vince Bracy is my name. Find me on vincebracy.com. If you need, since Grant is selling himself, if you need bookings for an MC, I also work with nonprofits. And I also am developing a course to help people live out their dreams. So I've been doing this, being myself, for the last 10 years. And people are always asking me, I think this is a mental health thing. People are always asking me, how can I try to achieve some of the things? Not that I'm that great or that crazy, but I'm living the life that I want to live for the past decade. And I like to show other people how to do the same. So hit me up, vincebracy.com.
Love it.
Because you put your air mask on. Because you put your air mask on, for sure.
That's it. That's it.
I love it, fellas. And everybody, you can follow me, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at Kendrick Coates, KENDRIQUE, Coates, like your winter coats. So Kendrick Coates. Also a life coach. So if there's anything that y'all have questions on, if you have anything that you're trying to work through, feel free to reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to assist you. Again, I thank you, Vince, for sharing your story, being vulnerable with everybody. I know it's not easy, but the community needs to see this. Grant, I'm appreciative of you of providing value and continually bringing a sense of energy to the room with your personality and also your authenticity. It's something that I truly enjoy and I appreciate it, and I hope that we can have more conversations like this. Again, make sure you go out and follow us. Until next time, we'll be back at you.